And we will be talking about storytelling and climate change discourse. I'm Ludwig Schiebel. I'm the coordinator of Climate Alliance Italy, and I've been working on climate change and how to communicate climate change for several decades. And I think you probably are here this afternoon because you would agree with me that communicating climate change is a very hard job. What we don't need to do anymore is to tell people that climate change exists, that it is man-made. I'm quite tired of this approach because those who still today negate that man-made climate change exists, I think we simply can wait until they might see the light, but it's not our job anymore to try to convince them. That's wasted time. Even though there is the first person whom we are going to see today, unfortunately in a video, who has an excellent website, Stefano Casarini, on Clima Alteranti, unfortunately in Italian only, he still doesn't tire to argue why negationists are wrong. What is also not very helpful is the heavy sensational arguments. You will remember Al Gore was talking about climate change like 300 nuclear bombs every day that are exploding on the earth. If these kind of catastrophic scenarios tend to demotivate, if things are really so terrible, if we are kind of without much chance going towards doomsday, I might as well keep on doing what I'm doing and get a new soup and eat my steak in the evening. And the same is true if we consider the problem if we make it too little, too small, as if it was be sufficient to stop eating meat and ride a bicycle and then everything will be fine. Lifestyle changes are very important, but they can't be, I mean, you have to be aware that there is the need for something like collective action, and bringing together individual activity and collective activity, again, is not simple. So the challenge is to communicate climate change on the level on which the problem presents itself, a global problem that is being caused predominantly by the north of this planet, and to do it in such a way that people feel motivated to act individually and collectively. Nice challenge. And we will see what our speakers of today propose, what they tell us, what their approach is to communicating climate change storytelling and climate change discourse. Our first, let's say, speaker of today, whom we are going to present in a video, because unfortunately he has a very important event he couldn't say no to, is Stefano Casarini. He's an environmental engineer and has a PhD in sanitary engineering. Didn't know that exists in sanitary engineering. And he has been carrying out research for many years in the sector of air pollution, emission inventories, and reduction of emissions in the atmosphere. And he has more recently dealt with strategies for reducing climate-altering gases, communicating the problem of climate change, that's why we have him here today, and processes for removing CO2 from the atmosphere. As I said, he has this, he's managing since many years this website, Clima Alteranti, which I recommend warmly to those of you who do speak Italian. He teaches since many years the course on mitigation of climate change at the Polytechnic of Milan and is associate professor at the University of Parma. He's the editor-in-chief and scientific co-director of the journal Environmental Engineering and is the author of numerous scientific and popular publications. What is more interesting for us are those popular ones like Some Like It Hot, which he brought out in 2008, A Guide to Legends About the Changing Climate in 2009, Learning from Catastrophes in 2012, Clean Air in 2013. I'm reading these titles because I think they kind of indicate where he's going. The climate has already changed. 10 good news about climate change in 2016. And he then brought it out again in 2019 and says there are still 9 good news about climate change. And his last book in 2022 is Sex and the Climate. He's co-author and performer of Some Like It Hot, a conference show on the changing climate. He will be talking about in a few moments. And he's currently the Deputy Mayor of Environment, Mobility, Climate Action, Innovation at the municipality of Lodi. Lodi is a small town, 40,000 persons town outside of Milano. So he brings together this rare gift of being a renowned scientist at the Politecnico di Milano, of being a politician, a deputy mayor, of being an activist, and of communicating climate change in an, I find, unusual and very effective way. Let's have a look at Some Like It Hot by Stefano Casarini, Francesca Celli, and Ermanno Celli.
Some Like It Hot is a conference show on climate change that combines scientific animation, music, videos, and analysis on how we are facing the problem of climate change. I am the speaker of this conference. I am professor of mitigation of climate change at Politecnico di Milano. I've been teaching this issue in the last 14 years, and now I have moved to University of Parma. Since about 20 years ago, I have been participating in many conferences to communicate the problem of climate change in many public events. And then I realized that the risk of this conference was to reach always the people that were already informed. And furthermore, it was increasingly difficult to talk about the climate because it's a topic that talks about death, talks about the suffering. So it's the deal with an emotional level. So there is the risk that the people will become discouraged, and therefore they don't want to know more because people doesn't like to hear too much about the tragedies and deaths and risk for the future. So for this reason, I try to change because I realize that the risk is that communicating with the reality of the climate change, communicating this hard reality is too heavy for the people to handle from the point of view of psychological resistance to deal with all of this suffering. So for this reason, I decided 6 years ago that I should communicate differently, and I wrote a screenplay of a conference where I mixed science and scientific animation and video of the impact on climate change, but also movie clips and just music, images on what we are doing. So the conference show is called Some Like It Hot, A Qualcuno Piace Caldo in Italiano, which is also the name of the book I published in 2008, 15 years ago. It was a book where I demolished the fake news on climate science, the alternative theories proposed by denialists and the big oil companies and so on. So there is in this conference show a jazz pianist, Erminio Cella, who plays 5 songs of the soundtrack of the film Some Lucky Dot by Billy Wilder, Hot Jazz, and also other about 10 other jazz standard by Bill Evans, Duke Ellington, and so on, and also Michel Petrucciani, one of my favorite pianists. The director of the show and the co-authors of the text is Francesca Cella. She's also the person who takes care of all the video animation. She downloads all the animation and then edits them to adapt them for the timing of the show. There are scientific animation, but also music that show the trend, the increasing trend in gas emission and in greenhouse gas concentration and temperature of the planet, the reduction of the sea ice, and so on. All the scientific animation, about 14 scientific animation, are freely available on the website. And on the website of the different kind of scientific organization and research center. Francesca also realized animation that show the different climate futures that we can face in the future that depends on different emission scenario. Data have been taken from the Copernicus web portal, and is a combination of the average of the results of different models made by different research centers. And you can see as an example, here we use the music Too Damn Hot by Cole Porter. You can see that how different is the future. And I believe that this kind of animation are better understood by people compared to a graph. You know, this is the graph of the IPCC report, but I believe that animation talk much more than graphics. The idea of the show is the combination of the heat of the jets, the irony of the image, and from the video of Marilyn Monroe could be a valid background to understand how burning is the issue of climate change. I believe that, as an example, the atmosphere created by You Must Believe in Spring is a famous jazz song by Johnny Mandel that has been played by Billy Evans and now is played by Erminio Cella. I believe that with this atmosphere you can better approach the great ethical dimension of climate change. And I believe that the people is induced to reflect better on the political issue of climate change. So all the information, all the list of animation are freely available on the website www.aqualcunopiacecaldo.it. We don't have already produced the English version. We know more or less there will be an English version of the show. Lastly, there is another conference show that we have created recently. It's called Sex and the Climate, which is the title of my last book. So the book talks about the connection between two very important problems of our life, that is our relationship, the love, and climate change, of course. And also here we use images, music, and scientific explanation, and we try to understand the point of conflict and the synergy between these two words, eros and the climate, that apparently, only apparently, they are very far away. There are a lot of connection between love, sex, and climate change. So this connection are scattered in many scientific journals. There are traced scattered in newspaper. Some connection is funny or extravagant. In books and also in song. Some Lucky Dot talk about love, hot talk about jazz, talk about love. And you can see a lot of connection also in the endless spaces of the web, of the internet. Sex and climate are connected with anxiety, with falling in love, with the consumptive, with extreme events. This new show is a little bit more interactive. In this show, the public has to answer to some question. As an example, is your partner hot enough? Or have you ever not made love because it was too hot? The atmosphere was too hot. So, I hope to see you in some of these conference shows. Arrivederci.
How did you like that? Was that too frivolous? To talk about something like it hot and sex and climate change, to mix these levels of communication between Marilyn Monroe and the warming Earth atmosphere.
Yes, I think it's very interesting, and I think it's cool too, because people who might not be as interested in picking up a book exclusively about climate issues might be more drawn to look if they're interested in the love aspect. So I think that's pretty cool.
Good. Okay, we'll move on, and we'll then have the time after our speakers have had their say to also discuss a little bit among us. I would love to hear some experiences by you and some considerations on this subject. We continue our program with a contribution from Austria, Poetry Slam for the Climate. Esther Sackel is from Carinthia in Austria. She studied biology in Graz, and since 2015, she's a slam slam poetess. Well, to be on the safe side, let's stay with slam poet. 2017, she finished second in the Styrian Corinthian contest, and nowadays she does readings and improv shows in all of the German-speaking territory, meaning I think Austria, Switzerland, Germany, and would you call yourself a slam poet or poetess in English? Be there as it may, I'm very glad we have you with us, Esther, and let's hear what you have to tell us.
All right. Do you guys hear me quite well?
Excellently.
Is that okay? Very, very good. All right, so I think I start right away, or do you want to say something, Anja? I start right away, right? Good. Okay. Have fun with this. I will explain a little bit of it later, okay? And then I became too big for my skin, and my body became so tight around my chest that I was barely able to breathe, barely able to move, barely able to be at all. And years and years and years I spent to learn to stay so small, and years and years and years I spent to breathe so very shallow my lungs would fit into that tiny space between my ribs. But then one day I got so deeply scared that for the split of a second I gasped, and I forgot to pull in my stomach, and so my skin burst, and I realized that I could shed like a snake. And I learned that all of that beautiful existence of mine was not about staying small enough to be able to endure the pain, but to feel it, enlarge it, and make it explode into a bigger me. So thank you very much for those kind words at the beginning. Slam poet is perfectly fine. Even, yeah, well, in German, I would be an Poetin, but in English, this is perfectly fine. This was the first short example of what poetry slam performance could sound like, but I wanted you guys to understand before I explain something what I do. My name is Esther, and I'm an Austrian poetry slammer and actress. Actually, I won the Corinthian Styrian championships this year.
So this year you won.
Yeah, I won.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. And with the Austrian championships, I was fourth. So I didn't have time to tell Anja, I'm sorry. Yes, and today I will explain to you why I think that Poetry Slam is actually a very great way to address hard and tough topics in general, but especially the climate crisis. And I'd like to say first, of course, I usually write in German, and this is poetry, right? So it is a big difference if I do this in English or in German, but I will do my very, very best that you guys can understand what I mean. And so that you have the chance to really understand what this is all about, I have to explain to you, right, what Poetry Slam is. Poetry Slam is a competitive art event in which poets perform spoken word poetry before a live audience. So, and a panel of judges. So 5 to 10 poets go on a stage and they perform their texts they wrote themselves. And the audience or the panel of judges, which is from the audience, so they're not professionals, they are randomly chosen from the audience, decides who wins the evening. So what I basically do is I write poems, then I go on a stage with it, and then people decide if it was good or not. that can be very hard. But the important part is that they really listen to you, because, you know, they have to decide if you win or not. And that is a very cool part about it. Poetry Slam first came up in Chicago in the 80s and spread out worldwide then very quickly. And it developed because poets wanted to do literature for the mob and not for the elite. And that is an important info, because it happened very quickly that the performance itself became just as important as the lyrics of the poetry. It's not about only reading your poetry, but it's a lot about acting. It's very dramatic. It's very emotional. And it's heavily influenced by hip hop and rap and stuff. So it's actually very cool too. And it has rhythm and it often rhymes. So what happens when the audience decides how good your performance is they really connect with you, right? They really want to be part of this. They know they're part of this, so they cheer as loudly often as they would do in concerts or even in sports games. So it's actually pretty cool to be a slam poet. And most of the time, and here is where the climate comes into play, you have free choice of topic. So you can use a Poetry Slam stage for a message. Not many poets do this, but I'm one of them who do it. And I often choose topics like, you know, society in general, justice, feminism, but as well as I choose to speak about climate. And I'm one of the very few poets who do this in Austria. I think we're 4 or 5 people who do this on a regular basis. And before I tell you my 5 reasons why I think that performances that are written for poetry slams are a really cool way to talk about climate, I have to specify I'm really talking about poetry slam, so what I just explained to you, because poetry slam, in difference to other forms of poetry, it's really easy understandable, okay? Usually you listen to it in your mother tongue, so this is a little different now, and usually you don't do it on video, so this is a different situation, but usually you get it right away, you understand it right away, you get all the emotion, and that is what makes it different to usual poetry. Yeah, okay. So here are my 5 reasons why I think that poetry slam performance is a very good way to address and communicate the climate crisis. Number 1, it's art. I consider myself a poet and an artist. My texts are not lectures or presentations, but artistic performances. So I'm actually able to say things in a way that you could probably not, because it's, as we would say in German, künstlerische Freiheit or artistic freedom. You know, I just am allowed to say things that scientists or politicians cannot, because it's an act of art. That's really great. Second, or point 2, it affects listeners in an emotional way. People who listen to what I'm saying, and you might, you know, by now you probably got the idea, what I do is really emotional. It's all about the emotion. So of course, my listeners are touched and affected by the things I say in a completely different way than if you just give them some information. And it is not even that easy to explain why this works out so well. But I think, due to the fact that poetry slam is also very influenced by hip hop, rap and stuff, I think it has to do with the rhythm and the melody of the words. I think it has to do with the fact that it rhymes. So I think it does to our brain something maybe similar what it would do when we listen to music. So it's not just giving information, but it's loading this information with emotion. What leads me to point 3, it's very similar to storytelling, but it has something additional. I don't have to tell you guys that the best speakers in the world are storytellers. That's actually why this meeting today, why you're having it, and you're all experts in this. And I don't need to tell you why storytelling works. But what is additional in Poetry Slam is the focus and emotional part. So I always recommend to do a Poetry Slam performance at the very beginning or at the very end of an event. Because if you do it in the beginning, even before you greet them and say hello, it will really energize the audience, it will wake them up, and it will draw 100% of their attention and their focus to what is happening right now. And it will give them a feeling that they are really a group. It will connect them because they're all listening to the same. The ideal would be that they are all feeling the same, and this will really connect them and will make them and help them focus on what is happening right now. If you do it at the end of a meeting or a presentation day, you can use it to really smooth, to really smoothen up the emotion, and you are really able to motivate them. It creates connection, and you're really able to uplift the mood. And all of this is very important, as we heard earlier today. Number 4, you can say a lot in a very short period of time. In poetry or art performances in general, you transmit information and emotion between the lines. You don't have to actually describe everything you want to say in very detail, but you just find that one sentence that is loaded with an idea or with an image. And this is where actually I come into play, because it's not easy to do this. So if you wanna do poetry or poetry slam as a point in your presentations, I really recommend you to get someone semi-professional, or at least someone who has a good feeling for words. And number 5, you reach people who you would not reach with the classic climate event. Because, Poetry Slam is very, very, very uncomplicated. You can do it like you would do a, flash mob, or just in the street, even in a parking lot. It is really easy to do this because you need nothing, you need no one, nothing but the poet. And you can reach people who would not attend the classic climate conference. That's why I choose to do it at actually Poetry Slam events. Good. I'm almost at the end. I think I have 2 or 3 minutes left. And so you guys get the idea of what I do on a regular basis. I will show you now.
Take your time.
Yeah, take my time. Okay, thank you. So I should breathe once in a while, but I'm really excited to be here. I'm kind of nervous because I don't do this in English usually. And I really hope that you get the idea anyway, because now I will show you my most successful climate text. And of course, I wrote it in German because usually I only write in German, and usually Poetry Slam performances are very long. They last up to 7 minutes, and this doesn't really work out in a video way. So I really shortened it and I translated it, but without trying to lose the effect. I really hope that this worked out, and I just can invite you guys to maybe even close your eyes, listen to my words, stay open, and try to feel what it does to you. As I said, it's my most successful climate text. I won with this performance. I won lots of poetry slams, and yeah, I don't want to say anything about it. You guys just listen to it and have fun. Boom, an explosion. And from nothing comes something. Boom, the earth exists, and suddenly there is an it. Boom, 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 boom. Atoms, molecules, cells, and life. The very first heart arrives. What a miracle! Oh, what wonder to comprehend life! But with the human heart began the end. And the time is not so far away when we'll realize the expensive gas was not the price to pay one day, and it might be quite soon. We will see what we've done and that we're doomed. And maybe then everyone, you, me, will see the way who we really are and not what we always wanted to be. Because we love our dogs and then have some steak. We post on Instagram about the difference we make, and then we get on a plane to get so far away from the voice in our brain that tells us it will soon be too late. Yet, we never arrive to that place that produces an infinite smile. And you know, I don't know, maybe you're rich, you booked your seat to a safer future on some planet B. But let me tell you a thing, and trust me with this. When you look back down here, it won't be a bliss looking down to the burning rest of us in your little expensive cosmical bus. You won't feel good and you won't feel free. And surely you don't want to be the one to tell her daughter, well, I watched the world burn like everyone else. Thanks for listening. That was it. Yes.
Excellent. Yeah. Please.
Do I just mute myself, or does anyone else from the Klimabündnis, or are there questions? What do I do?
Well, no, you stay where you are. Is that what you meant to tell us? You are finished?
Yes, I'm finished.
Thank you, Esther. That was a wonderful and for me unexpected experience. I not only learned another aspect of how to communicate climate change, but I also know what slam poetry is all about. And I mean, with the human heart began the end. I'll listen to it again. I mean, it's a very evolutionist poetry, it seems to me.
Yes, can I just add some little info there?
Absolutely.
Because you really got the idea, and I'm so happy that this worked in English. That was exactly the point. So the German text is, it builds up, I think, for about 2 minutes, just about what happened on planet Earth before we came into play, and how many animals and plants had to die so we have oil today, right? These are the first 2 minutes, and then it exactly happens what you just said. Basically, I say that with us, everything went to a little downhill, and it confronts people who listen to it very much with the fact that they don't want to hear about this. It confronts them with the way that they always say things that they don't do in the end. They always say, yeah, I'm doing what I can, but then they don't. And that is what this text is actually all about. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Esther. Will you stay with us? Because we will be discussing.
Of course, I stay.
After we listened to Attila, our third contribution today. I mean, as Esther said, you either use poetry slam to mobilize people or to lead them gently out of an event. So I think we are all sufficiently mobilized by now to listen to Attila Katona. Let's hope I got it right. You are at the Central European University, is that correct, Attila?
Yes, it is.
And you are a junior researcher, a consultant, a lecturer, an activist, and you have been doing research on many subjects. One of them seems to be a central one is circular economy. And you have worked with many organizations. Presently, you are a council member of the Hungarian Green Movement, and you have worked in the past with the Regional Environmental Committee, REC, and with WWF. So I'm looking very much forward to your contribution. In the program, you are as urban nature explorer. Attila, let us know.
Yes, thank you very much. Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. And thanks for the opportunity to share a story. And thanks, Esther, for the nice contribution. I had the pleasure to attend a climate-focused slam poetry event in Dresden. It was small scale. It's part of a conference event, but it was really fun. And actually, some students organized something similar at CEU just before COVID hit, actually. So fortunately, I couldn't attend, but these kind of events are super fun. And I think it's part of the appeal of telling stories, because if I may start from like bird's eye view a little bit, certainly there is a feeling of being afraid to doing things differently. And we certainly need to get people to start opening, engaging, experimenting, making different micro decisions. And I guess the big question is what kind of stories can we tell to achieve this? And I think we need to keep balance here, because one story is that there is an issue and we can sustain ourselves, the planet as a species, look at the data, it's scary, we're gonna hit a wall. Sometimes this works, sometimes it really does motivate people and we can engage, certain audiences with it. This is how I usually hit off my courses at the university. But then I usually try to shift. And the other kind of story I think we need to start using more often in environmental discourses, especially NGOs, is more solutions oriented. How can we thrive and prosper in the long run? How can we sustain our society and economy by doing things differently, be successful, transform systems in a way that they do not come with painful trade-offs if possible. But there is always going to be trade-offs, but maybe putting them in a better light and refining the narratives is gonna help. To me, sustainable development and the climate discourse is really about solving problems, and that cannot be solved by skeptics or cynics. Of course, there are reasons to point out difficulties, but I think we need, one message I really like to communicate to students, especially, is that ideas matter. They count. They're gonna have an effect on public policy far beyond anything that can be imagined right now, because throughout history, they have been transformative, despite all sorts of opposing forces, from abolishing slavery, colonial rule, the human rights movement. Now we have SDGs, which are a great communication tool. A couple of years ago, we had Fridays for Future, probably the biggest climate movement we have seen in the past decades. And yeah, we need such people. And we need people who can translate to different audiences, and art is such a thing. I think it's amazing for that. We need these kind of enablers, conductors, directors, people who carry different parts of the puzzle. And what I've been trying to do in my sort of engagements is build some science-based tools and try to use those to convince decision makers or a broader audience to, decide differently, especially about urban planning. And this is what I'm going to introduce today. And after maybe 10-15 minutes of me sharing a little bit of background info and the structure and the logic behind it, there's going to be an opportunity to actually try it out. I'm just going to share a link, and whoever would like to use this sort of planning game for a few minutes can easily do that. And meanwhile, I'm going to talk a little bit more about its background. My question is, how much time do I have overall with you guys without?
Attila, if you take another 15 minutes, another quarter of an hour, it would be nice to have some more time to have another.
So 15 to half an hour.
For the 15 minutes.
15 minutes. Okay, it's going to be quite short
So,
then.
15, 17, 20,
okay,
but not more. So we have another 20 minutes for the discussion.
Sure. Then I'm just going to share my screen quickly. And maybe then I will right away switch to. Okay, so I'm gonna tell a little bit about the background of why we have developed this tool, because I think that really does weigh in a little bit. We had a 5-year research project, and we have actually collected hundreds, more than 1,000 urban nature-based solutions across the globe. What you need to know about urban nature is that it's a very localized thing, and it really reflects local decision-making processes. So I, as a researcher and partly an activist, I found this to be a fascinating topic to work with, because you can really see local dynamics and how things play out. And we did collect about 1,300 case studies in the Urban Nature Atlas, which is a tool I'm not going to introduce now, but you can have a look. I'm just going to share its link in the chat. And what we did notice is that there are very big shifts in governing urban nature, and there are big gaps that we need to overcome when it comes to decisions about urban nature. And one of them is that we need to get away from the understanding that nature or green infrastructure is just decoration in a city. It's just fluff. It's something that you do after you have done the hard engineering and you have planned your buildings. You're gonna sprinkle some trees around it so it looks great on a plan montage, and everybody claps, and then you're gonna have a couple of sticks coming from the soil, and there you have it, urban nature. No, this is not how it should be. It's a hard performance infrastructure that delivers a lot of value to us. And when I was doing research in Singapore, just to tell you one example, what I found fascinating is how they used nature in hospitals and, for example, elderly care. They did notice that engaging and being exposed to nature in, for example, a healing environment, such as a hospital, actually speeds up the recovery process by 20%. Now, if you apply a hard economic logic to this, by having urban nature in the hospital, which costs maybe 2-3% of the maintenance cost of the hospital, you save up 20% of hospital beds. That's a really good trade-off. That's a really economically well-performing infrastructure for you. And looking at nature in such ways is a little bit of sometimes sleeping with the devil. You got to be careful about it, and you have to position your arguments right. But what I personally found in my research is that it really does wonders if you apply this decision maker logic to selling projects in urban nature related discourses, applying ecological economics, some public health economics, so that all sorts of positive effects of urban nature, from mental health to physical health, clean air, noise absorption, etc., do manifest themselves. And these things do add up. Right now, when an urban decision maker is about to call some shots, they're gonna, see multiple options, hopefully, on their table, and they're gonna evaluate maybe on a cost-benefit basis, but they are not aware of the actual benefits that nature brings. And this fundamentally undermines the business case for urban nature, which is something we try to fix. And we have developed a tool that tries to simulate urban nature-based solutions, elements of urban nature in a physical environment by creating a digital twin of cities, and then letting those who play with the tool actually experience how urban nature improves certain indicators. And we actually use 8 indicators plus an aggregate indicator, and we are talking about most of these are actually climate related. So for example, urban heat island has indicators such as number of hot days and number of days where it's beyond a certain threshold, average temperature. For example, for water related cases, we have stormwater absorption, we have green coverage. So we have biodiversity indicators, and we actually did model these and built a little bit of a game with it, which I'm gonna now show, sharing my screen. And before I do that, I'm also gonna share the link so you can actually play along if you would like. And just wanted to say that this link is gonna stay live, so you can use it after the call as well and see for yourself. Feel free to reach out if you would like to maybe know more or collaborate over it. So I'm going to share my screen. For some reason, Zoom intrudes on my screen. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, you can.
Yes. So, this is where you arrive if you click my link. Here, you can just click on sign up, type in any kind of email. It should have like an ad in it, any kind of password, and then you're going to end up here where you can select a challenge. And here, this scenario that I'm going to show you is in the city of Győr. It's where Csaba in the call and some of his team members are from, and we did a 4-year EU-funded project there. So we analyzed the area a little bit when it comes to urban nature-related challenges, and we have selected one of the main squares of the city for trying to apply more nature. And if you actually click one of the challenges, let's say urban heat island, then you're going to arrive to this interface where you can start putting down urban nature-based solutions, which are going to cost you money. And you can, let's say I'm going to buy some green roofs. Some of these are actually pre-selected, but some you can actually draw for yourself. I'm going to buy some green courtyards, and I'm going to put down some community gardens, which are gonna be something that I can actually draw out. And as you can see, it does calculate how much this costs me. And it also calculates already some of the impacts. So you can already see a little bit. Of course, I haven't done much on my little map, so I'm just gonna buy something more. I'm gonna build some grassy areas in this completely covered main square. We're gonna put down a biodiversity trail around it. So this is how you can play around with it. As you can see, we did model all these listed nature-based solutions in an actual model after 4 years of research and collecting data. So everything is backed up by indicators and hard data. Some of the cost numbers need an update, but otherwise it's fairly reasonable. And the current intention with this is to engage and educate. So we do have discussions with several cities who would be interested for us to come in and actually build this sort of digital twin layout of an area in their city where maybe they would like to have a stakeholder discussion or some kind of public outreach about the future of this area. And that way, this makes it possible to play around with tablets or laptops for an hour in a community gathering and let people co-create and discuss and debate different options when it comes to amenities, when it comes to nature, and actually see the results in terms of indicators. So how would this actually improve the situation of urban heat island? How would this improve the situation of water retention? How would this actually help us engage different kinds of stakeholders? And of course, when you played enough, you can finish your plan. And here you would see the results. We have deployed this and that much amount of green roof, green courtyards, grass. And here is how different indicators change when it comes to biodiversity, availability of high quality green space or sort of average green space, reduction of extreme flood events. And I just wanted to show you one that some students did over the summer, who also, by the way, developed a local scenario for Tartu in Estonia. And this is, their plan after like 1 hour of playing with the tool. And they have achieved really good scores and high impact compared to the amount of money they have invested in their scenario. So this is a scenario tool that can start discussions. And the purpose is exactly that, maybe to prepare some harder planning that should follow after ideas have been laid out on the table. And if you are interested, you can again follow the link and play with it. And of course, also reach out if you are interested to maybe co-develop a local area through this tool. It actually doesn't take a lot of effort. So if you're interested in such a thing, feel free to reach out. It's one of the tools that we are working on with Fizzy.
It's
so
an
thank you
amazing
for the
tool. Amazing tool.
attention.
Can you put in the map of Città di Castello, of the city I'm talking from?
Sure. It would take like a couple of hours. We use a GIS kind of layer. I'm not a techie person, but my colleagues know how to do that. Essentially, what it would do is take the data from a GIS database, which already recognizes buildings, streets, and several hard infrastructure elements, also like water, riversides, etc., where you could not place certain nature-based solutions. But the rest of the area is essentially free for grabs. So you could essentially create such a scenario that you have seen now for the city of Győr, and people could immediately start putting down these nature-based solutions. If the climate is vastly different, for example, humidity and amount of hot days, etc., then we need to adjust some of the baseline indicators, which also shouldn't take long. Because currently we have 8 indicators plus a total economic value sort of mini engine running in the back. And it is not a scientifically accurate result. It's close enough. It's in the ballpark. And it's good enough to start conversations, I would say. Not good enough to convince an engineer-oriented decision maker, but maybe, what I did notice in my work is that landscape architects, for example, can make amazing plans, but then at some point during the decision-making process, even if a mayor decides in favor of this solution, the timeline starts to run over, the budget starts to run over, and the first thing that usually gets cut out is nature. First 5% of the budget that needs to be tightened, this is that you can take out safely according to experiences. And what we would like to do is provide an argument for such cases to not do it, because the public benefit is so high that you should really keep it. And maybe it's going to be possible at some point to really do this in a completely engineering accurate way. It's a long way to go, but we have to start somewhere. Currently, it's an education inspiration tool that could be used for engaging, I would say, local communities, but also possibly students who work with cities. I would say these are 2 core audiences. Any further
Wonderful.
questions, feel free to shoot. And I'm going to put my email address in the chat as well.
Attila, thank you very much. That was also an unexpected treat. Hope I'm not the only one quite enthusiastic of the way we are dealing with the whole range of, I think, unusual ways of storytelling and climate change discourse. I mean, what you have been doing and are doing is to start out with what, if it's unfortunately or not, is not the issue, which is a reality, which we have found in our work as well, the overtowering importance of economic aspects, so cost benefit, which with us who are trying to protect the climate is not going so big, because we are saying there is climate chaos looming. So who cares about cost benefit? But unfortunately, it is a very important aspect of the whole issue. Not only since Bill Clinton, who insisted it's the economy is stupid. And and to bring that together with the use of the digital technologies, which is what we are doing in CINAMON, and gamification and citizen involvement, because I mean, that's what you, in your conclusions, put very well in a very realistic assessment that this may not serve for landscape architects to plan, but it serves for people to play around with, who then are the constituency the mayor or the decision makers will have to convince, because any intervention in cities in terms of urban green always is in competition with other possible uses, right? I mean, where you put some green, you can't park a car, or you shouldn't park a car. And parking places, of course, are very precious to some citizens. So, I mean, this possibility to play, and to play on a fairly realistic basis, I think that's a very impressive work you have been doing.
If I may, just for a second,
Go ahead.
I agree. Yes. It's exactly that. It's about trade-offs, and unfortunately, if you do not show the benefits, then some people, not those, of course, with an environmental heart beating in them, are gonna use it as a zero. They're gonna think of the value of nature as zero, unless you tell them otherwise. And this is what we sort of thought as an important possible starting point to convince decision makers. But yeah, it's an interesting debate. I have to say, one of the most interesting essay questions that I use to this day in high school and university, and it's a very entry-level one, is, should we put an economic value to nature? And I don't think we have like a conclusive answer. There's an ongoing debate for decades, and it's a very interesting one. So it's really good for education purposes.
Thank you very much. I thought you would have a hard time after Esther, but you are very, very convincing. What can I say? So I would like to open up for the last few minutes we have in this event to comments, questions, and experiences of you who are participants, but very many of you I know are also active in this field. That's why you are here. So please, the floor is open.
Gesundheit. I can say a few things.
Go ahead.
Yes, I'm a student. I go to school in the States. I'm just doing an internship right now with Klimabündnis. But this is something that I'm really interested in studying. I particularly thought that the slam poetry was super interesting because I am interested in poetry as well, and how that's another way to kind of, I guess, reach people in addition to the more technical or scientific aspects of climate work. I also think it's super cool to get to see some of what we were just looking at the GIS applications, and I think it's really interesting how they all connect together. And from an academic standpoint, as someone who's still studying, I found it really interesting.
Thank you, Ali. A question to Attila. To have a wonderful tool is one thing, to promote it is another. What do you do to, or what are your strategies, what are your activities to promote this tool?
Yeah, well, that's the hard part, huh? Most of us in the team, I mean, now with this tool, we are in a limited liability company, so we're trying to make some kind of business out of it, to keep the economic engine also running. But we are all academics and not really business people. So what we are really good at is the academic language, developing nice models, maybe developing nice results out of those models, but not really getting out there in the market. So now we are evaluating different pathways for this. For now, where we are getting the most interest from is individual cities learning about the tool and realizing that, oh, well, we could use something like this in the project that starts next year. So why don't we talk and you guys help us figure out how we could best apply such kind of a tool in our outreach process. So it's kind of small scale, kind of sporadic, and we're gonna see where this goes at some point. What we're also thinking is organizing maybe a training with it for like-minded people, like, in this call. So you could learn how to use it in an hour or two, maybe learn how to build a case in also an hour or two. And then you could head out there and actually use it in your own practice, in your own local community outreach, in your own whatever you wish to engage with it. And maybe that way it could become some kind of a rolling snowball. Maybe some kind of, yeah. So we are open to ideas. If you have a better one, or we are free to reach out. Again, we are academics. We love playing and developing such kind of things. But yes, that's my long answer. It's uphill.
The difficult part, yes. Esther, do you feel like and in the meantime, do raise your hand if you want to contribute. Esther, do you feel like an outlier in your poetry slams that you have a message? You said before that usually in those contests, probably it's more about love and desperation and why I'm on this earth and what's my future, and not so much climate change and biodiversity. But there are others like you. And so are you kind of the untypical case, or do you work with others, or is that just, it happens that some people have a message and others do not?
That's that sounded really cute now. Yeah, sometimes I feel like an alien, and I want to answer that from a maybe very personal point of view, because it's actually sometimes it's a little sad, because this is actually about winning or losing. The audience, they give you, even in most of the time, they get little sheets where they have numbers from 1 to 10, and they rate your texts, good texts and bad texts, and it really hurts if you get rated badly. So I think many poets are trying to play it safe, and just say things that people want to hear anyways. But there are actually people who are really use this stage to say political things, and to say things that maybe not everyone wants to hear, and then you lose. I managed to win with climate texts few times, but what is the more important part, I think, and why I think this is a good movement in any way, is that people see that poetry slam as an event and an art form works. So what they do is they take money, and they do events. As Attila said, there are many climate poetry slams, and people attend. Audience comes, they look at this because they know poetry slam is something cool. So I think that not very many people choose to use regular poetry slams to talk about the climate like I do, but I think that it is still a good movement, that people just have the idea to do more for the climate by doing poetry slams for the climate, or by doing art performances for the climate. So yes, that's why I think that is anyways a very, very good Entwicklung. What's Entwicklung? Development. Oh God, it's so hard. I'm so not used to speaking English. I'm sorry.
There are very many whose mother language is not English in this room in this moment. But let's say there are very few where English is her or his mother language, like Ali. Any hand going up? Other insights, comments, questions? Peter Müller, please.
Yeah, I also want to thank you to Esther, because I think it's really an interesting approach with poetry. And I also think maybe it's not the best audience when it comes to poetry slam audiences, but when it comes to meetings related to climate change in different aspects, because I think this is really an emotional aspect which is so much needed when it comes to climate change, because all the scientific or the sober information will probably be recognized by the brain, but I think it's really necessary to be recognized by the heart for changing things, or changing the individual approach to different climate-related issues. And so when it comes to the tool of Attila, on the other side, which is quite a sober and calculating tool, could be also interesting to mix this together when it comes to presentations of your tool, Attila, because I think this is really down to earth. I thought for some moments, maybe it's too down to earth, because it's really, an architect can use it for maybe city planning or so, and they are doing it integrating it in their business as usual models. And like what business as usual is meaning, it probably can be so a little bit used as a kind of greenwashing also. So just this could be interesting, but I would really be interested in seeing how it's work and what the impact is in the reality when it comes to changes. because it's a really low-level model, and I think sometimes this is really necessary. I just remember when the street near our house was reconstructed, all the neighbors were against trees. They didn't even think about climate. It was all the question of the leaves in the autumn, and the dirt they make, these ugly trees. And I think for this,
they take away the parking spots.
Yeah.
Forget the most important. Yes.
That are the leaves and the tree of the trees in the street. Yeah.
Yeah, and Esther, if you have the German text, I would also be curious to read the German ones.
Can I answer to
Of course you can.
the whole statement, not just the email?
Go ahead.
We can, yeah, of course we can contact.
This is a contest. You have 60 seconds or less.
Yes,
Then
okay.
you'll show
No, but what Dieter just said, I think that's actually the interesting part about storytelling, and especially poetry slam. When it comes to Attila's presentation, it is, you know, it's so interesting what he's doing and what this tool does, and it's I don't even get it, you know, because I think too stupid for that. And I think what poetry slam, so how it works, I understood what you're talking about, but how could this work out and things like that? I don't understand it. And I think this is the very important part about poetry slam or storytelling is, you know, you as scientists get very emotional about their work because they exactly know what it means. They know what their numbers and their facts and their target figures means for the people out there and for our future, and they know this. But the people who are running around out there, they don't know this, they don't get it, and we have to make them understand. And we cannot do this without the emotion, and we cannot do this without, you know, getting it really loaded with what does this mean for you. And I think this is the aspect what poetry slam and of course storytelling in general can do for the situation.
Okay, this brings us to the conclusion of this event on storytelling in climate change discourse. I think for me, surprisingly, we saw a big spectrum of ways of communicating climate change, very different among each other. Spectacle, Stefano Casarini, poetry with Esther, and digital pool game with Attila. But they all, each in his or her own way, I think are very effective ways of reaching a certain audience in specific situations. I like that Attila with the that you quite modestly recognize the limits of your tool, that it's good for citizens to become aware of what the possibilities are. The poetry slam, of course, that's a self-selection. People come there because they're interested in a poetry slam. You don't mobilize your audience, or you do it to some extent, but on the whole, you just have to deal with the people you find yourself in front of. So I would be amazed if there's anybody in the audience who says, I didn't learn anything from this session. For me, it was most interesting. Thank you, Esther. Thank you, Attila. And thank you, all of you, for your presence and your contributions. And see you again, I hope, at the next Digital Climate Summit. Thank you very much.